Hi, this is Alessio. Hope you're well. In this video, I want to ask this question. Is it a good idea to buy one of the most hated markets around the world? Now, in case you're thinking, well, which hated market am I talking about? Let me give you a bit of a clue. What do you think about this? Yes, guys, you guessed correctly. I'm talking about Russia. I got the idea for this video when I heard one of my favorite investors, one of the greatest investors of all time, Jim Rogers, say this.
Well, I bought some shares back in March. I bought some again a week or so ago. I don't expect this to be the Third World War, and I see great opportunities in Russia, which is very cheap and very hated.
All right, guys, so that was investor Jim Rogers talking about Russia. Now, it is true that video is from some years ago, from 2015, but nevertheless, I still think today Russia is still viewed with some distrust, I think unfairly, and I think it's still one of the most hated markets around the world. Before we talk about the charts of the Russian stock market, and before we talk in detail about this, let me just first of all say this, that I've got here probably one of the best vodkas out there, Russian Standard. By the way, they're not sponsoring this video, just to let you know. And I know some of you are probably asking right now, hey, Alessio, are you doing this video as an excuse just to drink some vodka and listen to the Russian national anthem? Yeah, kind of. So let me just go ahead and try some of this, by the way. It is a little bit early in the morning, by the way, just to let you know, to drink vodka. But hey, you know what? You only live once, right? So let me just pour some here. I'm only going to try a little bit. It's quite strong. So to all our Russian friends, to all our friends out there, guys, как дела? Хорошо? Wow. Okay. Guys, I seriously don't think drinking in the morning is a good idea. Maybe later would be better. Anyway, let's continue. Anyway, before I start though, back when I was at school, again, long time ago, now 25 years ago, probably 30 years ago, my friends at school were Russian. I have 3 great Russian friends, and they taught me some Russian words. I think I know a few words. So that we got хорошо, which is good, and I think blin. Blin means terrible. Russian people, what does that mean, blin? Anyway, guys, let's start. Welcome to the video on the most hated market around the world, Russia. Let me just say before we start that one of my favorite Russian composers, classical composers, a guy called Shostakovich, Dmitri Shostakovich. And if you've never listened to any music by Dmitri Shostakovich, I highly recommend it, guys. Listen to his 10th symphony, the second part of his 10th symphony. And this is specially written for Stalin. And let me explain to you the basis of this. As I'm sure some of you know, Stalin did not tolerate any criticism. So if you were brave enough to criticize his rule, what he would do, Stalin would just send you to one of those Siberian gulags. This is what's called the Purge. The Purge is the period when Stalin would send any opponents, any political opponents of his, to the Siberian gulags, where essentially you would suffer a lot and potentially die over there. So Shostakovich was writing his music during this period, the period of Purge, and he obviously didn't know how to criticize Stalin. So what he did was, he wrote this piece of music. It's the second part of his 10th symphony. It's beautiful, it's absolutely amazing. And in this music, he gets his revenge on Stalin. He gives his middle finger to Stalin. Here's a short clip. I just love that clip with the powerful strings coming through. You can tell this is written for Stalin as an evil and cruel tyrant. Anyway, I'll put the link for that music in the description, so go ahead and check it out. All right, guys, let's talk about the Russian markets. So as you can see, the chart of RSX, this is the Russian stock market ETF. So essentially, this particular ETF gives you exposure to Russian stocks. And indeed, on this page, you can see here, etf.com/RSX. You can go ahead and check out all the details about this particular ETF. You can see, for example, one of the top holdings, one of the top 10 holdings is Gazprom. I believe it's an oil company, oil and gas company out there. Anyway, so as you can see here, the chart of the RSX. And notice something very interesting, by the way. We've seen this nice rally after the major crash. So after the major crash that occurred across most markets, in fact, back in March, we've seen a nice decent rally so far. We've actually hit the 200 moving average there, and I think it's the second time now we're hitting the 200 moving average on that chart with negative divergence, bearish divergence there on the chart. So far, you know, this rally, you know, as Russians would say, has been хорошо, хорошо meaning good. But the crash in March was blin. I think the levels we hit were about the $22 mark, And we now have, again, we're seeing the beginnings of a negative divergence on the MACD as well. So this means this rally is beginning to lose some momentum. It's beginning to see weakening signs. So whenever you see negative divergence in a chart, it's showing to you potential weakening signs. Now, again, Jim Rogers said at the beginning of this video that he was looking to get long on the Russian stock market based on the fact that it was cheap and is hated. I wouldn't say necessarily that the Russian stock market is cheap, because that was back in 2015. Markets have moved on since then a little bit, but I would say it's still hated. The majority of people out there still mistrust the Russian stock market, the Russian stocks out there. I would say rather unfairly. So the question is, would I buy Russian stocks or the Russian stock market ETF right now? Personally, no, because the risks right now are much higher than any potential rewards. So we've seen this major rally, we've hardly seen any retracement. So I personally still see more risks in this market in the short term, in the short to medium term, next few months, than any potential rewards. So for me personally, I would much rather step aside for now and wait for a retracement, wait for a major pullback or retracement in this market, in the Russian stock market. Now, again, in the near future, we'll talk about what potential retracement levels it could come down to. But I think if RSX were to take out the support, near support is about $20, $20 level. If RSX took out the $20 support, very likely we could move down and we could actually see a major drop, beginning of a retracement in this market. I mean, I personally would not want to get long on this market right now, just because of the negative divergence I'm seeing in this chart. The big rally so far we've hardly seen any retracement so far, and actually getting a bit over bullish right now as well. We're not just over bullish in this market, we're seeing over bullishness across other markets as well. So personally for me, I would much rather wait for a pullback, a retracement to support levels. And again, in future, we'll talk about the support levels. Anyway, guys, before I finish, let's just have one more for the road. Let's have one more, as the Russians say, za lyubov, for love. I think it's how it is. I'll just drink this out. So first of all, to all our Russian friends out there, spasiba bolshoy, and also das videnya.